So today I'm going to analyze the poem by Emily Dickinson, Those Dying Then. First, the table of contents. I'm going to first read the poem and summarize it, and then give a brief introduction about the poem, and also I'm going to share the prose form of this poem, and next I'm going to analyze the key terms and then structure, literary devices, prominent features, sound devices, conclusion, and summary of main ideas, and last glossary. Those dying then knew where they went. They went to God's right hand. The hand is amputated now, and God cannot be found. The abdication of belief makes the behavior small, better an ignis fatuus than no illum at all. There are two questions Nico gave me. The first one is discuss how the structure of this poem contributes to its theme, and the second is explore how the narrator creates effects on the readers with her use of literary devices. And I'm going to answer those two questions in my presentation. So first, to summarize the poem, in the first stanza, the poet talks about in the past people who had faith and religion knew where they went after their deaths. However, people now no longer believe in their religion as strong as before. And in the second stanza, Emily Dickinson is talking about that the lack of belief makes people's deaths meaningless. It's still better to have a religion than having nothing at all. Next, I'm going to give an introduction to this poem. So the date of this poem is not found, and the author is Emily Dickinson. The genre is a lyric poem, and it is written in free form. And the speaker of this poem is in third person. And the purpose of this poem is to convince people to hold beliefs and to doubt the existence of God. And the atmosphere of the poem is gloomy and scary, and the tone is solemn and melancholy. So I identify four themes of this poem. The first one is death. The second one is faith and religion, and the third one is meaning of life, and the last one is war. And I think the first three themes are actually intercorrelated with each other, and I'll discuss later in my presentation. So next, I'm going to present the prosic form of the poem. So those who were dying then knew where they went. They went to God's right hand that is amputated now, and God cannot be found. The abdication of belief makes the behavior small. It's better having an ignis fatuus than no illum at all. And here we can see that I make two changes here. The first one is that I made the dash in the first line into who were, and by using this dash it can help show the conciseness of this poem. And next, in the second last sentence, I add it's and having, and like in the poem, Emily Dickinson cuts these two words, and by doing this she can help the audiences to identify the contrast between the ignis fatuus and illum easily, and help emphasize the effects of this contrast. Next, I'll be analyzing the key terms, and while analyzing the key terms, symbolism will be mentioned, and also the theme and atmosphere these key terms created will be discussed also. And first, in the third line, God's right hand, and here it is actually an allusion, and God's right hand refers to the Bible and common speech as a metaphor for the omnipotence of God. In the Bible, to be at the right side is to be identified as being in the special place of honor. So I think like here, God's right hand actually symbolizes the place people go after death, probably the heaven, and it is also used to emphasize how powerful of the God and the ability of the God to help people find meaning of life after death. And it also appeals to audiences to pay attention to the importance of having a religion. Also, the theme of religion is accented by the repeating occurrence of God's right hand, God's hand, these words. And it also implies that having a belief is an honorable thing. So the next word is amputate in the fourth line. So amputate means the removal of a limb, and it usually associates with words like infection, pain, injury, trauma, death, accident, and it also have a negative connotation. So it actually creates a scary imagery in front of the audiences. And telling audiences that to abandon their beliefs is like amputate God's honorable hand, and it is like a brutal abandon. So through this kind of imagery, a scary atmosphere is created naturally, and which serves to lead the audiences to consider the consequences of their belief. Like the audiences might ask themselves, will there be a consequence, like a bad consequence after they're abandoned? And also, I think it also implies the theme of war, since the poem could be after the Civil War, when religion isn't as strong as it used to be, and the distractions of war takes people's attention away from their religion, and especially after all of the deaths after war. So I think that like this actually implies the theme of war. And the next key term is abdication. So abdication usually applies to monarchs or to those who have been formally crowned. And it is the act of renouncing and resigning from any formal office. So we can see that abdication is like a graceful and formal word to remind people, and it can help remind people that we should treat belief in a courteous way, and it should be regarded formally with respect. So the next word is behavior. So behavior, like here, it is not used in a normal way. So I think behavior here means that the behavior of dying, meaning of our lives or moral, and it also acts as a symbolism to symbolize, as I mentioned before, the meaning of our lives or moral, and it also like sends a message to the audiences that without belief, our meaning of lives will be minimized. And the last word, ignis fatuus. So ignis fatuus is a light that sometimes appears in the night over marshy ground and is often attributable to the combustion of gas from decomposed organic matter. And I think here it symbolizes a deceptive goal or hope, and also it symbolizes God. So here I think that there might be two functions of this word. The first one is that the author might deliberately design this word to emphasize the theme of religion and the importance of having a religion. Even though it could be the worst, it's still better than having nothing. And in another interpretation of this word might be that Emily Dickinson herself still has doubts on the real existence of God. Although she thinks that it's better for people to have a God in their hearts, she's questioning and being contradictory, since she actually symbolizes God into ignis fatuus, which leaves a deceptive impression in audience's head. And this word also creates a gloomy image in front of the audiences, and since it like ignis fatuus always associates with ghosts and scary apparition, specter, ghosts, death, words like that, and it has a negative connotation. And this kinds of add weight on the scary atmosphere, and by creating it, audiences may be afraid of losing their own religion. Next, I'm going to talk about the poetic structure of the poem. So, like here, we can see that although there are strong caesura between between the lines, however, the audiences used a lot of enjambment, except from the fourth line, except from the fourth line, the fifth line of the first stanza. The rest of the poem used, all of them used enjambment, and this kind of fragmented form of the poem reflects a fragmented God and the attitude people have towards God, which is determined by the degree of belief. And this structure traces a betrayal of traditional belief about life after death. And next, I'm going to talk about the structure from the perspective of the content. So here, the poet speaks directly to the reader, adopting the persona of another person and expressing that person's thoughts. And the persona the speaker is taking is a speaker, which is more like a wise old man who is leading us to think and tell us what to do or what not to do. And here so next, I'm going to talk about metaphor. So I mentioned this metaphor before. It is the hand, and I think it symbolizes the omnipotence of God and the place where people go after death. Maybe I think the heaven. So here, I think one thing we should also pay attention is the metaphor of hand and its correlation with the word amputated. So to put them together, the metaphoric hand with a surgical term like amputated reduces the metaphoric to the literal, and thus this articulates the whole anthropomorphic myth of God, and is in fact kind of symbolizes a loss of faith. And next, the contrast. So there is a contrast in this poem, which is a contrast between the ignis fatuus and no illum. And I think it is actually a a contrast between inaccessible belief and having no beliefs. So by this comparison, it shows that even though Emily still doubts the existence of God, she thinks that it's still better to have an inaccessible belief than no belief at all. And ignis fatuus can be a misleading lie to follow in the darkness, but given the available choices, it emphasizes the harm of having no belief. Next, talking about the dashes, Emily Dickinson loves to use a lot of dashes in her poem, and specifically in this poem, I think Emily Dickinson uses as for three functions. So the first one is uses to provides a direction or a clue. For example, in the first line, those dying then, between those and dying there's a dash, and this dash actually explain who those people are. Those people are actually the people who dying then. So it provides an explanation. Second, dashes provides continuity. So, for example, the last line of the first stanza, to continue the discussion about belief and have a belief or not, the author actually used dash to continue the discussion. And for the last line of the second stanza, by using dash, it actually leads the audiences to keep thinking about all the God and abandoning God's things, and also to think about what will happen after abandoning all those beliefs. And the third function, I think, is the logic, as dashes actually provide logic between two lines. For example, in the second line of the second stanza, this dash actually provides leads the audiences to think the consequence of abandoning belief. Next, about capitalization. So here, there are two functions of capitalization. The first one is that by capitalizing words like God's right hand, hand, and God, all these words, it strengthens the power of God. And also, the author capitalized the first letter of belief and behavior, and this actually implies the relationship between belief and behavior. It's like belief gives meaning to our behavior, and as I mentioned before, behavior might imply the death of people. So belief gives meaning to our death. And also, talking about the meter and tone of this poem, this poem actually uses iambic metrical feet and trochaic metrical feet. Iambic metrical feet is unstressed, stressed, and trochaic metrical feet is actually the opposite. It's like stress, unstressed, and like iambic metrical feet provides a rhythmical, steady, unfluctuating quality to the poem, and it helps Emily Dickinson establishes a serious tone to explain the loss of beliefs and death. And on the opposite, trochaic metrical form helps establish a gloomy and melancholy tone, which serves to convey the message that without beliefs, the meaning of our lives will be undermined, which is a very scary consequence. So to conclude, the poem operates on two levels. One level is concerned with the breakdown of traditional belief, and the other level develops the idea of the importance of belief, no matter how transient and flimsy it is. And these are my two sources, and the last page is my glossary. Thank you.